right, I see them. One camera. I'm waiting for the cameras. Tough, my guy. Welcome back. Murat, as usual. Sean, as per usual. There we go. All the people, Trick Fee, YY. Perfect, our regular crew. Everybody, all the hardcore people are here. Well, it's good because the meeting of today, it might sound a little bit boring, and it is boring, I will tell you that. But, oh, hello, YY's cat. But on the other hand, it's one of the most important things, right? Audience behavior patterns. It is something which goes in line with, let's say, copywriting, right? Creatives. But the behavior patterns are usually based on things which are difficult to grasp, like culture, religion, those kind of things, which obviously make it harder for people to dial it in, because you have to reflect on other cultures around the world. And that's what we'll be doing today. So I'll do a little screen share for everybody, and then we can follow along with what we're doing. Oh, Stanley, it would be great if you can enable the screen share. I have to ask people permission in my own business. That's how it goes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got it. Cheers. All right, perfect. Let me see if I can still see everybody, and I can. Awesome. Alrighty. So in general, with the audience behavior patterns, there's always a big line, right? A big wave that we follow in terms of what we want to aim for and how the situation actually is. So there are obviously some key patterns, right? It's very important when you analyze the audience to look for those key patterns. Analyze audience. Key patterns. The key patterns is basically where it starts. I already named a few, so it's usually geo or region specific. Yes, that's where it all starts. Once we go into the specific regions and specific geos, there are always patterns that are established, which give us ideas of how the audience might behave. And of course, we have three major cultural, well, culture is one, okay. And then the other two, cultural movement inside a specific group of people, right? Here we define it by geo or by region, because usually it's classified per country. For example, people from the United States behave very different than people from China, right? In terms of what they like, what they do, how they are online, what they buy, if they do opt-ins. The Dutch people are extremely skeptical about any form of opt-in because there's a lot of watchdog authorities here. When you go to a country like Mexico, there are no watchdog authorities at all, so you can promote whatever you want, right? It's the level of confidence that basically brings that with itself. Okay, so I need two more aspects here, the key patterns. Who knows the additional two key patterns? If cultural is one, then there are two more, who wants to give it a shot? Because this is basically about civilization as a whole. It's not directly related to media buying. It is with the key pattern, but by itself, not really. Sean, want to give it a shot?
Is it culture and religion?
All right, so religion is another one. Perfect. And then we're missing one more.
I do, maybe race or gender.
That would be a good one, but those are like quite specific, right? Gender. And it's not specific to a specific region because there's males and female everywhere.
Yeah.
Murat, thank you, Sean.
I thought maybe economic differences.
All right. Yeah, we'll add that one as a fourth one because that would be good. Economic, we'll put GDP, right? Because that's a key pattern, but not one of the core ones. Right, that's an additional one, but that's a good one to take into consideration. You want to make a guess? If you look at culture, religion, then usually there's one more big influence over civilizations. They control like a big portion of your life, usually in terms of what you can do and what you cannot do?
Laws.
Yes, so we'll say politics. Yes,
Politics.
perfect. So we have the cultural aspect, we have the religious aspect, and the politics, right? These are usually things you either are a part of or have no influence over, right? Because culture spread to the basic activities of a civilization. Religion spreads through the basic activities of a civilization. And politics is built through the basic activities of a civilization. That's why culture, religion, and politics is so different per country. Obviously, they contaminate each other. So a specific region of countries are usually quite similar. But if you would take, let's say, death penalty, right? Some countries, very much legal, very normal. In other specific regions of the world, not applicable. And you'll see that into their cultural behavior and politics. So let's take an example of the death penalty where it's allowed. So let's say Thailand, right? For example, Singapore, Malaysia, those are very close to each other and have similar behavior patterns because they have kind of the same culture. They have kind of a mixture of the religions, right? Not specifically all three of them, but you will see a pattern there. And that's basically the most simplified way to establish the key pattern, right? So if you don't know a specific religion of the country, it will tell you a lot of things. Yes. Right now, Ramadan. All right. Anybody here follows the Ramadan? I think it should be a couple of people. Right. Respect to you guys. It is obviously a very big cultural impact on your behavior, right? Because it makes no sense to advertise Subway to these guys right now because they're not eating. Yes, you need to wait a couple of hours and they might consider it. In that aspect, you're basically ruining your ad spend, right? This might be the case when you try to promote pork in Arab countries or pork in Jewish countries. This is a very basic example, but it goes in very clear detail when there's a big pattern of what you can do and what you cannot do. Who has a good example of a country with a very distinct behavior pattern compared to one another, right? So two opposites. Elijah's, let's give it a shot.
I think it's a good example should be India and I don't know, Europe.
Europe is not a country. Which country would you pick?
Sorry, India and I don't know.
Oh, we can say Lithuania, right?
Lithuania, yes, any country from Europe, yeah.
What would be the biggest distinctions between those two countries? Why are the behavior patterns not the same?
Religion.
Okay.
All three.
Cultural and politics. Well, that's an easy one. Do you have a specific example regarding religion? Why it should not, or estimate to be not the same?
Religion, it's completely different religion. We are, for example, Christians here, and Indians are what they are.
I think Hindu. I'm not sure if they're all Hindu, but let's just assume that they're Hindu. Why would that behavior be specifically different than from one another? That's the real question, right? Because of course now we see Hindu on one hand and Christianity on the other hand, but if you don't know what it means, then it's a little bit messy. Yes,
it's a little bit messy. Yes, so
and that's why, you know, it's I'm not a religious person myself, but I have read all the major part of any religious book, right? Just because I want to know how they think, not necessarily for advertising. I think it's interesting in general, but it's very important that if you don't know anything about Hindu, it might not be as smart to promote in India, right? One thing, let's take another example, right? Let's compare Russia to, let's say, Sweden. You want to give your insights on this? What would you say would be a good cultural aspect where it's like a clear behavior pattern difference?
Politics.
Sorry?
Politics.
Don't understand.
Politics, the government.
Oh, politics. Okay. Politics. Yeah. All right, politics. And what about the politics?
It's in Russia is less like freedom. In Sweden is like more, you know, free
Less
speech.
perceived freedom, right? We wouldn't necessarily know what it entails, but you guys are obviously very close to both countries, right? You guys are in the middle of both. Okay, this would be a good difference. So we would say less perceived freedom, and Sweden more free speech. Yes. In terms of what you can say and what you cannot say, that would be a clear difference. Now, this is all very interesting so far, right? We have seen all metrics. Now we want to relate it to how can we make these people buy more stuff of what we promote? Because that's the main idea. Understand the culture, the politics, the religion, and how to buy more shit. So I will give you guys an example. What would be a good product to have?
Vodka in Russia.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to promote alcohol online. But it would be a good example. It would convert really well, I think. When we look at non-stereotype offers, what would you say? Let's do, for example, life insurance. Yes? Okay, let me switch to somebody else. Tough. Please name me 3 countries where these offers would run well, and 3 offers where they probably will not run well.
3 countries where it would.
Yeah.
I'd say tier 1 countries it would run well, but tier 3 it wouldn't.
And why not?
Because of the monthly payments.
Okay. What else? More elaborate? Why the monthly payments?
Because it's an additional cost, isn't it? It's like I think life insurance in the UK on average is something like £20 a person per month. So that adds up to like 200 and something pound a year. In a tier 3 country, they don't even have the system to have a life insurance, so they wouldn't
Yes.
have that.
Yeah, that's basically perfect. So you would segment based on that. Okay, now we go more advanced. Yes, when we look at neutral offers, because this is something that you need to understand. Yeah, every masterclass we do, every training we do, I always tell you need to understand this. But these, in terms of behavior pattern, is very important. When you promote Nutra, what is the pattern in this scenario? Is this enough, or do you need more information, Taf?
Isn't it? I don't know. I think it's money related, isn't it?
It is, but it has to do with the conversion flow. Conversion type. I know Damien knows. Damien is here, your buddy from the UK as well. And he knows that he knows this very well because he's been experimenting lately. Let's give it to Damien, okay?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
See what he says. Thank you, Taf. Damien, the Nutra conversion flows. What do we have here?
So tier 1, the cost per sale will work because there's more expendable income. The trials, yeah, they've got the payment systems in place. So, credit card processing, everything is there for, for tier 1 credit cards. Tier 2, cash on delivery. So that would work because obviously just the networks and the actual infrastructure of the country for the payment systems, and also the money is less, they have less expendable income to spend on those things. And then, again, the same with tier 3, really, cash on delivery.
Yeah, or nothing.
Or nothing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or nothing at all.
All right. So the question is, of course, this is quite interesting, right? So under tier 1, we see a cost per sale flow, straight sale or trial, right? But in tier 2, we see a cash on delivery flow. Cash on delivery, I think we got a letter from the Dutch government last year that they were abandoning it 100%. It's not possible in the Netherlands to do cash on delivery anymore because it's just outdated. We have, if you order, let me tell me if I'm correct. If you order before 10 a.m., you can have it after 4 o'clock if you pay like $4, right? It's called like special packet or something. You pay $4 and you have the package in your house within 6 hours. Obviously, Netherlands, very small country, right? But on the other hand, this will be the future. So the reason that they don't do this flow anymore, because it's a very slow flow. But then again, like Damien said, little infrastructure, financial and logistic wise, it makes it a perfect operational model, right? These people, in the tier 1 countries, we have credit cards, online banking. We can pay with the tap of our phone in the store and it's paid, right? Tier 2 countries, like for example, I don't know, Romania, Bulgaria, those type of countries, they might not even offer credit cards to their citizens. They have to find it online somewhere on an online bank. So in that regard, if you ask them to submit a credit card for a straight sale, 2 things. The low purchase power makes $100 straight sale product really expensive. If your salary is $500 a month, median income, then it's 1/5 of your salary, where $100 on a $4,000 salary is way more affordable, of course, right? And then it's obviously the infrastructure to support it. Damien, while we're here, can you please give me the relative payouts for each geo?
Yeah, so with the tier 1, I know with Ad Combat you're looking at anything $100, $110 plus for on a neutral one. Tier 2 you're looking at around $55. Obviously that's a cost per sale. On the cash on delivery you're looking around about 20, so between $12 and $25 for tier 2. And then it gets lower again on the tier 3, so you could be looking at anything, yeah, $1 to $12, yeah.
All right. Now we come back to something we've discussed on the bidding strategies. I had some problems uploading it, that's why it's not live yet, but we discussed it on the bidding strategies. Can somebody raise their hand if you were on the bidding strategies video? Because then I think most of you were. It was last Friday. Yeah? Okay. Alenio, you can take it. Smart guy. Let's see. Thank you, Damien, by the way. What's up? Relative payout is linked to what exactly? Because now we have discussed GDP, we have discussed bids last week, we have discussed the payout, and we have discussed what the actual payout is. Why are the payouts structured like this? Well, of course, relative to the GDP, but why?
I wouldn't think anything about GDP and relative income of each society. So tier 1 has more money.
Yes. What does that mean? That's true.
So people have more money in tier 1 than in tier 3. So it's easier to find people to buy your products in tier 1 than in tier 3.
All right. But why would, okay, so let's say an advertiser pays you to acquire a user, or is the payout established on something else? Is it based on GDP alone, or are there other metrics involved? Well, I'm telling you, there are other metrics involved, right? The question is, what are we looking for?
There are lots of people with money in tier 3. So
in tier 1, you mean?
No, it's not like you have people with little money in tier 1 countries and people with lots of money in tier 3 countries. So we just have to find the right audience.
Okay, but I think it's the other way around. So tier 1 is the high GDP, right? Gross domestic product. Yeah. US. But you're saying in tier 3, yes. Okay, so I understand what you're trying to say. There is a percentage which has money here, but that's not it. That's not what I'm looking for. Good reminder from Friday, but we're going to the wrong side of things. I know Damien knows the answer to this. Alenio, thank you. But I think Rommel also has some input. He has these cool Monopoly posters. Rommel, can you give it a shot?
Well, hi everyone. I don't was in the last Friday meeting, but I think beside only money, maybe
So the question is, I will rephrase it. Yes, these countries is high GDP, medium GDP, low GDP. So that's just relative money that they have. Of course, the advertiser is going to pay you less, but why? That is the question. So Alenio said it has to do with the GDP, which is somewhat true, but it's not the answer we're looking for. We need to be not on the left side of this, but on the right side. We need to look at the other side of the business.
Okay, but that will be also that, for example, in tier 2, the basic amount of money they get monthly will be like what the example you said, $1,500 monthly, and you will be getting there like one. If the higher will be $100, that will be like the 5 times their salary. So
right,
that will be also that.
That's true. That's what Alenio said. So that has to do with the GDP, right? But we're again on the left side. We need to be on the other side. So it has to do with the advertiser, the network, and us, not with the customer. It has nothing to do with the customer at the end of the day. I see Murat knows and Damien knows, but these guys have some decent experience under their belt, right? So I want to see if anybody else can give me the right answer. Well, good attempt, but let's move to somebody else, okay? Let's see if Trikvi, you're the last one. Let's see if you can make us proud. I can't hear you yet. You're still muted. Yes.
Hey everyone. Are you talking about the traffic, the price of the traffic?
100%. Yes, it's the relative price of the traffic. Okay, I will explain this. Yes, although it's not on the behavior pattern, it's important. Relative price of the traffic. 100. That's very good, Trikvi. Thank you. Okay, so the advertiser takes into consideration the referral partners, the cost that they have to make. Yes, they know they're only going to send traffic when they are going to make some money, right? So they established a relative payout relative to the cost of the traffic. That's why it's very unlikely to see a $100 payout on a straight sale in a tier 3 country, because the advertiser knows the people cannot afford it, and they know the traffic is dirt cheap. So they might even lower the payout so people can afford it. And there's such large volumes worth of traffic available, right? So it's a two-sided story. We discussed that one side, and the other side has to do with the cost of the traffic. So what you will get is, and it's all relative, right? These three are relative to one another, but you get high CPM, mid CPM, and low CPM. And we've all hopefully experienced that once. So for example, let's take native, for example, right? High CPM would be about $15 optimized. Medium CPM would be about $2. You can see there's quite a significant drop there. And low CPM would be, well, what Alenio has in Brazil, which I think is like 4 cents at the moment, all right? So it has to do with the relative GDP, but also the price of the traffic, and then again, supply and demand, 3 factors. All right, perfect. Now that is out of the way, we go back to the behavior patterns. Obviously, I want to go back to the Russian analysis, because there's one more important factor, which has nothing to do with media buying by itself, but everything to do with people, right? Which is one of my favorite non-business topics to talk about. And all my employees know it. It's Russia versus, let's take an example like Denmark. And this is Hofstede Power Index, right? So Hofstede is a Dutch guy. It's a really good book if you have not read it, but it has all to do with the relation of culture and how audiences behave. Russian in terms of very masculine society versus Denmark, very feminine society. And you will see big patterns in the audience behavior, right? Why does it happen when you promote in Russia that 99% of the time the checkout name is male? It's almost never female. Even if the female wants something, the male orders it for her, right? When you promote in Denmark, it's like 50-50, it doesn't really matter, right? But there's a clear pattern there. When you go into the Arab world, it's always the males ordering for the female. It doesn't mean that, don't make any assumptions. Yes, it's not oppression or anything like that. It's culture, which is very different of things. In regards to that, relative, right? So this is about masculinity. For example, what's another good one? Well, free speech, what we spoke about before, right? We're in Amsterdam. We can say a lot of things here. And the offense rate is very low. So people do not take offense that quickly. And that's why Dutch people are extremely direct compared to other people in the world. because I can just say something and people will not get offended. Then when you would take, for example, a Latin American society, right, where it's a lot of respect and I don't want to hurt your feelings kind of thing, which makes the audience behave obviously very different. So you can imagine if you need to write a lender for a Russian audience, right? So let's say you're promoting on Yandex, which is their like main search engine stuff. You have to be inside that mind of the specific audience. And we have a good example. Damien. We went into the UAE with a skincare offer, right? Was that correct? It was COD, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the first issues you ran into, Arabic, right? And you cannot read Arabic. They write from right to left. So the banners were still at the right side, but the banners need to be at the left side. Very simple changes, which you don't understand if you don't think about the audience behavior. Because if you have a lender and you tell your translator, just translate this for me, they're not gonna change the banner from right to left because they're not coders, right? But it's very important because otherwise your sentence starts from right to left with the banner. Makes no sense. So what did you do?
Well, I ended up pausing that campaign, but we had to do the proofwriting had to be done by someone that was actually based there. So it had to be proofread by someone that was based in UAE and could speak Arabic. It was, it's very difficult to know, especially not being a native language speaker. And it's not just the language part is the problem. As you said, it's the whole setup, you know how the page should have read, the imagery. There's so many things to take into account when promoting in the Middle Eastern places. But it's getting easier now because I'm learning.
Well, that's it, right? Things that obviously it's very much, those countries are often religion based, right? So there are certain things which make sense, right? For example, what would be a good example to pick? Oh yeah, let's say you promoted India, right? Most females, I don't even know what it means, but they have like this red dot on their face, right? Then if you run ads, and let's say 99% of the women have this red dot and you don't use it, it disturbs the pattern, right? It's the same thing as promoting English copy and English lenders in non-dominant English geos. So if you promote Nordics, Belgium, Netherlands, you can use English. Singapore, you can use English. But if you're going to promote in English in Lithuania, your pattern is so much off the relative pattern because these people, it reduces the amount of relative trust. Which basically means if you promote in English and they're not used to English, the trust goes down, right? Because they're not familiar with that pattern. Is this clear for everybody? Because that was quite the sum up. Make sense? All right. Let's go back to the offers, right? Because I think this was quite interesting. Who has an offer on which we can do a little analysis? Now, all of a sudden, nobody's running campaigns. Really? Why are you guys scared to talk? Yeah, Taf? Okay, let's do it.
I'm currently running 2 push offers in Sweden, but I've taken a shortcut. So the shortcut I'm taking is I'm translating it in Google because I've recently heard that Google's native is supposed to be quite good.
It depends. When you go into difficult languages like Swedish, Dutch, German, it makes a lot of mistakes, right? Grammar mistakes. So
okay.
In Dutch, we have obviously, we would say this house, and the German, the Google Translate says that house, right? If you're a native Dutch speaker, it is so off, it's what foreigners say. Right? That it's not. I see it a lot on like black hat Facebook offers. I see in my feed like the Bitcoin stuff. The translation is so bad, but because they use Google Translate, it's a relative risk you're willing to take, right? Because I know if it's grammarly correct, then it would be fine. But the odds of it including mistakes is likely. But let's say we're going to do it the right way, right? So you promote Jysk, right? The furniture store.
Yeah.
Okay.
And co-op as well.
Let's start with Jysk and identify the audience. Yes. What would you say?
Well, to me, it seems like a female sort of market because
Why?
it's a furniture store and it's design.
Okay. Do you have a relative example of another furniture store which is dominated by females?
Well, I'm using UK. That's the problem. So I'm using UK as example. So I'm using UK IKEA. The majority
Okay,
of
perfect.
people.
Yeah,
that
IKEA
do-
was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, the majority of people that would do shopping in that for the designing would be females.
Right. This would be a first-hand experience, I assume. Which country in the world are these people from, which are on this call? Which country has an IKEA? Let's see some hands. Oh, is that Lithuania as well? Yes? Okay. What about Brazil? IKEA in Brazil or not? No? You don't hear me? Okay. What about Peru? IKEA in Peru? No? Oh, you're missing out. You don't have cheap furniture. Okay. What is important? If you would experience IKEA for yourself, what from my experience when we bought some office shit there, desks and stuff. When you walk through IKEA, you always see the males standing in the aisle and the women are looking at all the different things that they have to offer, right? The males are just standing there on their phone. They're not really engaged in the buying process unless they're buying like what males are good for, inspecting a bed, like the big stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which I would say your assumption of female is 100% correct, right? Again, with the sweepstakes, men are less engaged because they're more skeptical, right? Unless it's about gambling, then it's almost all men, right? So female furniture, that would be right. Now the question is, with the sweepstakes and the push, you don't have a lot of targeting. But let's say we could identify some targeting elements to basically identify the behavior pattern to use, let's say, specific images, specific lender copy, that kind of stuff. What would you say would be your ideal target audience? Well, we start with women, of course.
Yeah.
What about the age?
I'd say 30 and above.
Yeah, 30 and above.
Why?
That's very important.
Cash flow. And
all right.
Cash flow and people that can afford to decorate their house.
Okay, so let me
but
just...
But then again, that may not be true because partners can pay for it as well. But
and in the regard of a sweepstakes, they're getting the initial item for free, right? So
yeah,
I'm just wondering, cash flow might make sense, but how?
Cash flow meaning they'll be earning. Females 30 and above are more to be professional. That's what I know.
But why would they need money to be interested in Jysk?
It's to decorate their house, isn't it? They need money to buy the products.
You would need money to buy any product.
Yeah.
So why specifically at Jysk? That's the question. Is there a specific behavior pattern in the money that they would need? Because from what I hear, Jysk is one of the cheapest ones.
Oh, right. Okay.
So cash flow would be important when it's about designer stuff, right?
Okay, true.
Do you want me to hint you one? It's
yes,
not really
please.
relative to the age.
Yeah.
I would say I would go 40 plus in this scenario. You know the things, and no offense to anybody who has this in their house, which has like live, laugh, love, the kind of thing. I can fucking tear my eyes out when I see that in somebody's house, which is what we call low income purchase behavior pattern, right? It's like they have not one of this, they have like 10 of these in their house everywhere. And if you have this, keep doing you, but it's just not my kind of thing. You see this in like dollar store, this kind of stuff. And you also see it extensively at Jysk, right? Which is basically a behavior pattern for that specific audience. So I would say this is what we would call auntie audience, right? This is somebody who likes, they're not going to Jysk to buy, if they get a $500 gift card, they will not buy a couch or anything like that, unlikely. They will buy all kinds of garbage to fill up their house, which they don't really need. Does that make sense?
Mm-mm.
That would be, for me, the user that I would identify. When we would look at kids or no kids?
They would be with kids, wouldn't they? 40
I think
plus.
so.
Yeah, I'd say 40 plus, yeah.
But it could be a massive characteristic. I don't think for Yusk it's applicable. It doesn't really matter if you have kids or no kids, but obviously depending on the offer, it could have a big specific outcome, right? Things could change. What else? What else would be important for Yusk?
Time to go shopping in these places. It takes forever.
Okay, so we would say offline audience, yes?
Yeah.
That's a good one. I didn't think of that one. I was thinking way more difficult in terms of like real behavior. And for the UK, what kind of audience would you say?
Somebody that's moving home or
Oh, that would be a good one. If you could target that, that would be insane.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is pretty much it. The Yusk is a difficult one. Thank you for volunteering, but I'm also not able to add more to the list because I'm just not familiar with the brand, right? I have in my house, I have a bar, right, which is pretty cool, which you can like dine on. I got that at Yusk for fucking cheap, but I've never been to the store before that. I just picked it up, walked out.
So can I ask a question? So now that you've created this audience, is this the targeting that I should go for when writing my copy? Or
Yes.
creating,
So
or doing making my creatives?
100%. You're trying to relate to this audience. However, what we call biased assumptions, right? When we say all Muslims wear hijabs, right? Which is not true. Especially when you promote in Turkey, where you will see their Muslim culture is very different than Egypt, for example, right? Egypt is a lot more hardcore compared to Turkey. That is where you might go wrong. So it would be best to double verify and would say like, what is this based on? If you say kids or no kids, is it one, relevant? Is it two, actually applicable here or not? But it makes sense. If you have an offline audience, you're not going to say, as seen on bbcnews.com, right? Because you would assume that they behave offline, right? So you would say, get a Yusk gift card at your closest mall. Because you would assume that they participate. I have never been in a mall in the Netherlands in my life, right? Because I buy everything online. But in Canada, because the shipping takes 7 days, when I used to live there, I went to malls all the time to buy my shit because I could get it the same day, right? So there is the behavior pattern based on infrastructure, which has to do with like economic patterns. Okay, all clear for this stuff?
I have another question, sorry.
Sure.
So, you know, it's quite spammy though, in general, push, right? So you've got your heading, which is very catchy. It should draw them in, right? So wouldn't the normal examples, like you've got a message from so-and-so, you've got like, wouldn't these apply in this case if they're 40 plus, or they would do?
Okay, so the one thing that you have to understand is ICTR is not CR, right? So you still have to build a coherent flow. So with extremely high ICTR, it doesn't mean it's profitable. That's one, right? The flow needs to be sustainably coherent. However, I would think, and from experience I can tell, that if you would say Yusk 1,000 store opening, you need, for an older audience, they're gullible, that's one, but you need validation, right? It's not about curiosity, it's about problem solution or either fact-based. They always ask why, right? And the reason that scammers on WhatsApp, on SMS can scam old people is because they always tell the why. You need to put in your phone number because your computer has been compromised, because this, because that, blah, blah, blah. Where young people, they don't necessarily think properly because of the short attention span. So you don't need the why, you just need the curiosity, right? You can get a free PlayStation, okay, click, right? And an older person would look at it because the longer attention span, because they're not that busy, and they would say, do I actually want a PlayStation? Do I need this? And if you could say, because you're a fucking Vodafone customer, it would make sense to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a lot more in, well, the proof than actually the hype.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, let's do another one because we have time. Who has a cool, interesting offer that we can run down, which is not push? And also, who's not Damien? No, I'm kidding. You can go if you want. I think Y did a good case study in the community, so we can go with him.
Yeah, I have a neutral offer currently on native MGID. Geo is US.
All right, payout?
Payout is around 100 to 170, something like that.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Network?
Sorry, again?
Network?
Oh, it's a ClickBank. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Interesting, because the US audience is really something of its own, yes? I don't know if we have anybody from the US on this call, I don't think so, but it's one of the most, yeah, Joe, you from the US or not? Yeah, okay, well, I'm going to destroy the US market right now. So it's one of the most gullible, from an outside point of view, retarded audiences, right? There's literally so much indoctrination that they are not aware of what is happening in the world, apart from what's happening in their own country, and they can still not grasp that to the biggest extent. Which is a whole different topic. For us, it's just about advertising, and we know they're gullible, so we take advantage of that to get the conversions. Yes, they have relative high purchase power, so we are here, right, in this scenario. With the CPM, you would be a little bit lower on MGID. When you optimize, you would go into this range. But what are some key characteristics of this audience? That's what we first have to identify, not relative to your offer, but relative in general. And then we can narrow it down.
Female, 35 plus.
Now, this is for your offer, yeah? But I would say in general, for the market. What are some key patterns for the market?
For the US market.
Yeah, so I said gullible, which is one.
Right. You can go more aggressive.
No, about the people who live there, about the society.
Well, they consume the way of spending. They like to buy.
Oh yeah, so consumption society. Yeah, that's a very good one.
Also, they are very accustomed to use their credit card.
All right.
Because, for example, for some different culture, different country, you want people to put in credit card number, they are like, no, I can pay right now, but I don't want to use my credit card. But
welcome to the Netherlands, yes. We don't pay shit with the credit card because we don't want to get scammed. Yeah, okay, which is something from like 15 years ago, but it's still strong in the culture. Okay, what else? I would say political divide, right, which is very clear. It's either left or right. There's not really any other choice, which has a big influence. Very patrionistic, which is obviously very important in their behavior. I was in the States, and I've never seen so many country flags in the States. Well, maybe Israel, but there's just crazy amount of American flags hanging out of houses. I've never seen a Dutch flag except of like Independence Day, where they use like a Dutch flag, but only one, like maybe less than 5% of the houses, right? Because it's just such a big mix of cultures that, well, if you would go to Amsterdam, you see more Turkish flags than Dutch flags, right? Which is kind of funny, but it's true. They have a strong patriotism for Turkey, which I can respect. In the key characteristics, anybody has anything else to add to this list? Maybe Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, I think it's a very, well, I think to your point where it's very divided. Obviously, you've got the Biden fanatics and you got the Trump fanatics, and that's still very alive today. So people are very passionate, which I would say that if you put an offer in front of them, it creates that impulse buy. So they're very passionate about just taking action.
Perfect, impulsive. That's also a very important one. Thanks, Joe. That's really good. Anybody else has? Yeah, Damien, let's go.
Yeah, the Americans are very much bigger, better, faster, aren't they? They want to be better than my dealings with Americans through the forces is if I had, you know, we've got this weapon, they've got a bigger weapon, they've got a better weapon. It's, you know, I suppose that comes to patriotism as well, but they're, you know, they want to be better than you. They you know, which is a, you know, personally I see it as a good thing because the UK's looking to go in reverse.
No, so yeah. Okay, so perfect. That one is also very important. What you see in this list is that they're not standalone; they're always interlinked, right? So there's not one of these topics that stands by itself. It's because they want to be big, better, best. They are patriotistic, but because of that, you choose one camp, and there's a political divide. Because of that, people only consume for one source, makes them gullible. Right? Because they're gullible, they consume, they're impulsive, and because they're impulsive, they consume a lot, right? That's the reasoning. It's all attached to one another. It's not separate. And what that creates is a pattern, right? Which is exactly what we're looking for. All right, what are we going to do with the audience? You said women 35 plus. What else?
With kids.
Why?
Because that's the main character in the VSL, so it's
Okay.
more coherent.
What else?
Yes.
Right. They have some fat problems, so they're a little obese. Yeah, that's usually the audience you're looking for, which is also a key characteristic, which is overconsumption, right?
Yep.
Consumption, and that would tie into fast food culture. And that is obviously right here on this call alone, we have a circle from around the world. We go from Iceland to Lithuania, back to the UK, to Brazil, all the way to Asia. It is a great big circle. Elijah's, yeah, I don't know much about Lithuania, but how many fast food chains do you have in that specific country, like McDonald's, KFC, Burger King, Pizza Hut? Are there many or not? Yes, there are many.
Not so many, but we like fast food.
It's popular in big cities. This nets.
All right. That is very important. It's popular in big cities. How many big cities do you have in the country?
4 maybe.
4. All right, there we go. Thank you, guys. When I was in the States, any little small town I went to, Dunkin' Donuts, you know, that kind of thing, McDonald's are like one of the main ones, which is everywhere. Any accompanied culture where you go, for example, to Canada, UK, Australia, which is like an English tier 1 pattern, they have not necessarily, McDonald's is like widespread, but not necessarily Burger King. So in Canada, you have something called Tim Hortons, which basically replaces Starbucks, right? Which is like the gigantic chain, but they have like donuts, sandwiches, all that stuff. They're open 24/7. So those are all things which push the overconsumption in consumption society. Very good point, guys. Very good point. All right. So they're usually obese. What else? Why?
I would say tied to the number 9, they like junk food. So one of the sub angle is, you know, without giving up junk food.
Okay, so so now we're going to make an assumption. Yes, we're going to assume they're fat because they eat a lot of junk food, which I would say very much so. However, can we prove it somehow? No. So we can say overconsumption, right, as a characteristic, but to say if it's solely because of fast food, you know, fat people have a lot of excuses. Overconsumption, they have a lot of excuses, and you don't want to hit them on the raw pain point, right? If you would say you're fat because you eat fast food, they walk away because they have heard that a million times, right? If you would say, yeah, don't give up fast food, it's a little ridiculous, I would say, but for the copy it might work because they're gullible again, right? Okay, anything else?
Well, Colin, I'll add something. The fact that we work so much, we do and buy so much online. So we're very quick at making a decision to buy something online, whether it's from Amazon or whatever.
Okay. Is it because you work so much? Because if I would compare relative cultures, let's compare US. Yeah, okay, maybe maybe only Japan and those kind of like Asian hardcore countries are a little bit more on that side. Okay, yeah, we could say a lot of work, which is
Yeah, I came out of corporate American, so we easily worked 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and I have friends that easily work 80 plus hours a week.
right. Perfect. Strong work ethic, quick decision making. I think this is the biggest one, right? One of the biggest ones, which makes a lot of sense. Perfect, Joe. Anything else you have to add?
No, I think that's good for me.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. Why? Is this good, or you want to add one more?
No, I think that's all I have.
Okay. So from this, yeah, this is the characteristics of the person that we're trying to target, and this is the specifics of the audience. Yes. What are now the 3 points you need to be aware of the whole time? You mentioned one already, which was overconsumption, right? Which is something you have to be aware of the whole time. Overconsumption. Then 2, it's basically all you do is matching these things, right? You look at what the whole audience have, you look what this person have, and you might change a little bit, but they are quick on the decision making and they are impulsive, right? So what would that mean in terms of your copy? Who would know this? Yes, Damien.
Like a call to action. You know, this offer runs out in 20 minutes time, half an hour's time. So you make it, they've got to buy it now.
And what does that mean if you put so much pressure on it? It makes the angle
aggressive. You're being aggressive.
A lot more aggressive. Yes. Yeah. So you take perfect. Thank you, Damien. On point. You make the most aggressive angle you can because they're impulsive. You can push them. You don't need to pull them, right? In Europe, you need to pull the customer because they're not skeptical, but they are more skeptical than the US. In the US, you just need to push. This is the problem. This is the solution. Let's go, right? And in Europe, this is the problem. Here is a list of 6 reasons why you need the solution. It takes more convincing for them to pull the wallet. And Joe was on point when he said quick decision making, right? What do we see because of the quick decision making, which is also a big audience behavior pattern that we missed? You see it especially in ClickBank.
So Colin, let me ask a question because we are quick decision makers. I know we also take advantage, probably more so than any other country, on refunding if we don't like what we got.
Perfect. That was the next one, refunds and chargebacks. 100%, Joe. It is the culture where it's normal to process chargebacks. It's normal to call the bank and tell them you want the money back. And it's up to the bank to support their customer and be able to do so. That's why when we consult like in-house businesses with huge offer quantities, for example, offer owners, right, advertisers, they have calculated in their ROI, the refund and chargeback variance up to 30%, right? Which is, for us, we would say mental, right? Because the refund and chargebacks in Europe is maybe less than 0.5% of total gross sales. And this you can see huge regarding business. Well, I would say effective. It's effective for them as an audience, but not as effective for you as the affiliate when they are being pushed back, right? They're pushing it back to you. So the refunds and chargebacks are on point. Perfect. One more in terms of the angles we need to be considerate of. So because you are aggressive, we have a lot of these elements involved there. We have the overconsumption, and okay, so we all know that, we all know Americans are fat, right? They have one of the, they have the highest obesity rate in the world. And why could that be? I think pretty obvious. Why?
Why could that be? I don't know. Is it about the fast food culture?
Yeah, because that would relate back to overconsumption. There's 2 sides of that story. One is the consumption, and 2, it's the lack of something else.
Well, and Colin, I'll add, I think everything is so easily accessible here. I mean, you can get anything you want. So it just makes it so easy whether you want chocolate chip cookies, a milkshake, a burger. I mean, literally within 5 minutes you can have it.
True, not exactly what I was looking for. Why aren't you fat, Joe?
I'm kind of a health nerd, so
Okay, so there we go. In terms of health, what can you
they
do
are
for
not
health?
aware of health and a healthy lifestyle.
And what do you do in a healthy lifestyle?
You exercise.
Okay, there we go.
Right.
So exercise, diet is one of the biggest points, right? But activity and exercise would be the next one. Why? You live in the Netherlands, yes?
Yeah.
You've been here for quite some time, yes?
Yes, yes.
In the Netherlands, there are fat people, like anywhere else in the world, yes? But what do we do that almost no other country does best?
Biking.
Biking, there we go, right? Damien is also a very big biking fanatic, but in terms of biking, I cycle maybe 10 minutes to the office, 10 minutes back, right? So quite short, but it burns about 600 calories because it's raining, it's always windy, these kind of things, right? Those 10 minutes are fucking intense because we're close to the ocean. So here it's never not windy. We have a huge windmill outside our office, the one for electricity, which goes like, and that is obviously very important. The relative activity and the circumstances of, let's say, the weather and stuff are very influential in those matters. So what you would see in colder audiences, in colder environments, people are more fat, or they have a rather passive lifestyle, right? In warmer audience, they tend to be like higher calorie burn standard. This is all around the world, right? So it's not different. What makes the activity a clear indicator here is because the consumption is high and the accessibility to activity patterns is also high, but they're not used, right? There are gyms everywhere. Why don't they go? Because they don't want to, or they're not engaged in it. One thing the Americans are great in is hardcore sales, yes? And because there is hardcore sales for, let's say, the last 30 to 40 years, what creates from the sales side hardcore sales mentality, it creates from the buyer side massive excuses, right? I cannot do this because this. No, you're fat. That's why you're unhealthy, not because you have a pre-existing heart condition, which some people have. You got it because you're fat, right? Which is okay, but the solution is there, but they rather spend a lot of money for the supplement, which is good because that's the way we get conversions. So tapping into their emotion on this level, so which is emotional, right? The fourth one. This would basically be your core trigger to consider every time you write the copy, every time. These would basically be sub-angles, general sub-angles. You would just need to make them relative to your offer. Make sense?
Yep.
Any questions on this? Anybody?
I think we have a question from Taff.
Sure, let's go to Taff first and then Damien.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
What about the angle where it's the best product? Because they want everything to be bigger and better. And would that be a good angle as well? Like, this is the best product you can get in the market. This would do X, Y, and Z.
Could be. So the reasoning goes as follows, yes? If you would have best product, there's a extremely high amount of competition. So that's a pro and a con both ways. To be able to, let's say for the Nutra, to be able to claim the best, you will need to make certain claims, yes? The #1 fat loss. And then you get the FDA, right? Which is somewhere we don't want to go. Which is a very good idea because a lot of countries, it's weird, right? Because they have such an aggressive FDA department, but at the same time, they don't really do anything. The supplements only get banned once the problems have already occurred, right? But as an affiliate, you don't want to pursue that liability. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that? That's a good question. No? All good? Okay, perfect. Damien.
Just with, obviously, I know we've focused there on the American audience. Do you think that because we're becoming a global community, do you think these trends are, like for instance in the UK, you were saying about chargebacks and refunds, with Amazon over here now, and then pushing the, get it today, get it tomorrow, have your money back. do you think that the UK, that is a different audience, is becoming very similar to the US audience? So the actual, everything's becoming blurred. So like we spoke about, the Mexicans like to be like the US. So potentially a copy that would work in Mexico, in the US would work in Mexico. So you see one, there's
yeah, I understand it, but I don't think we can find a valid pattern there, because you have to look not necessarily only at purchase elements, right? Religion is one of the big ones, right? When we go back at the top, but also, for example, past events, right? Second World War, those kind of things. The alliances created on the Western European side are mainly through war efforts, right? That's why the economic benefits are shared, which is something which goes way back. That's necessarily applicable to the US-UK relationship. Look, for example, at food, right? The fish and chips, yeah, it's fast food, but not applicable in the US. I would say US doesn't really have any food of their own. It's all from other cultures, because obviously it was founded by the strong Dutch guys, right? New Amsterdam on the New York side. What is important, however, is your porridge, shepherd's pie, right? And go on and on and on. The list in terms of that is too big that it would take 100, 200 years to create that adaptability. But you have culture on this level, right? But you get a lot of input from Nigeria, Ghana, Middle East, right? Of fugitives that slowly influence. Why is this not happening in Ireland? Because they're barely taking any fugitives, right? Because maybe it's a shithole by itself, I don't know. But we have a lot of Scottish companies, yes, on Deberoo, and they're all moving out of Scotland, right? The entrepreneurs, the owners, because those are also behavior patterns. Living in the UK, you know what they say about Scotland, right? And it's all the same. So when it comes to your question, yes, on a financial point of view, there might be some behavior overlap, but I would say there are more bigger factors at play than just the financial industry.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, cool.
Let me think of if I see something else. Well, drug abuse is a big one, yes, which is also for the United States, a very big problem that is slowly on the rise. It just continues to go up, where we look at countries like Brazil and we know about the stories about the favela, this and that, but we know about Poland, about the far right-wing movement in terms of the political view. But at that point, you underestimate the problems in your own country, because we said tier 1 UK is awesome, unless you go to the London ghetto, and then it's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So those things you have to take into consideration, because if you would promote Nutra products, it's not going to be, assumingly, the ladies from the Upper East Side in London that are going to buy these products. It's probably more the low income housing kind of things. Yes, make sense?
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions on this, guys? Because this is basically the core of what I wanted to discuss today. You guys all understand this? Makes a lot of sense. You guys want to do another analysis? Would that work? Because I think we have somebody who can use our help. Mr. Christoph, good day to you. I see you decided to join us. Yes, I'm talking to you. Yeah, you're gonna grab your headset. All right, perfect.
Hello.
There we are. Yes, I can hear you. All right, so we have done so far 2 analyses, but you just joined in. So let's do another one for you. Yes, let's analyze your country. Nobody knows France better than you, right? Can you hear me?
Analyze on which point?
These points. Let me just remove this. I want to know about the culture, the religion, the politics, and economic GDP value. We all know, well, all Europeans know, I assume, that French people are a very unique breed of people, right? Their behavior patterns are very different in terms of pros and cons relative to the other audience. So Dutch people are very similar to German people. Dutch people are very similar to UK people in some patterns. But let's say France people are more connected to Italians, right? In terms of how it works. What would you say if you talk about French people, what their 3 top characteristics would be in terms of behavior?
I will say First one is I don't have the word. What is the word? Let me try search in Google Translate. Sorry
Sure.
for that.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, that's obviously one of them, which is very common, right, for French people. And that's just something to be aware of. It would be, let's say you promote an English offer in France, it will never give good conversions, right? Because French people like to speak French. So that's very important.
That's very true. Especially, yeah. If you promote something in French, in France, you have to promote it in French. Otherwise, you have no chance. And by the way, with good French, because I saw some worldwide offer with translation very not bad. It was good. It was okay. But personally, I wouldn't buy on this website because it's not. It doesn't give trust because of the mistakes in the translation.
Perfect. If you watch this recording and you go back to 25 minutes ago, that's exactly what I said on the languages when there's a mismatch on the trust when you use the professional Google Translate.
Yeah.
Right? What he just said, because he wasn't here at that time, it's exactly what I said, or maybe already an hour ago, right? And that's obviously what I tried to hammer. All right, we got the language part. What else do we have, Chris?
So I would say also that, well, one characteristic of French people, so the word is contestant, how would you say? I can say
competitive?
That. It's like contestant. I'm not sure it's a good translation for that. It would be like.
Yeah, can you describe it, perhaps?
They want something, once they have it, they say, oh, it's not good, I want something else. And it's like they are always complaining about
well, I think we can all agree to that, yes, about French people.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, maybe always complaining is not the right word, but there's always something better on the grass is greener on the other side, yes? What else do we have? Because I think I know one, but I don't know French people that well.
Well, it joins the politics point, which is we are always complaining about politics. So we don't really have like
I would say
in
perhaps
USA.
Like a passion for luxury, perhaps, because you guys obviously have the luxurious bread, you have luxurious wine, you have the fashion brands, all that, right? Which is very big in France, I would say. When I dated a French girl for like 9 months, about a year and a half ago, and she wanted like, what was it called? Beignet with framboise. I don't even know what it means. It's like raspberry beignet, right? Like you know what I mean or not? It's like a cupcake kind of thing, right? Which I mean, for a normal lunch thing, it's like fucking $12, right? So to buy something like that in the Netherlands, we know that all the Dutch people are under money always. So we buy from like the grocery store a little snack, which makes sense. Like they like wine dinner, that kind of thing, and like big consumption of wine, which is normal if your country provides it, right? That's why Dutch people drink a lot of beer, which makes sense. Do you have anything else like this? So we have luxury, language, complaining.
Yeah, well, with regards to politics, what I wanted to say is it's, you see, the way I perceive USA, for example, they have a big passion for example, Trump, which is someone with, you like him or not, but you have to have an opinion about him. In France, we are very against, like everyone. It's like you don't vote for someone, you vote against the other one. It's really like that in France.
Because you guys have Macron and you have the big one on the far right is Le Pen, right?
Yeah.
I know. I don't know what the distinction is between these two, but basically, so what you're saying is nothing is good for France, but if we have to do something, just not that specific party. It's like that? Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Well, let me just say political issues. Okay, so regarding this, it's usually something which is not allowed. Obviously, with the Facebook issues, you're not allowed to mingle in politics, right? So we cannot use it as an angle. You're always complaining is you don't want to call people out on the obvious stuff, right? So when you say Dutch people are cheap, or you say Moroccans always steal, those kind of things, which are like assumptions in the general behavior. Murat is laughing. No, it's like a common Dutch thing to say, right? French people always complain, UK people are fat and they only alcoholics. Like that's like the pattern which is perceived by other countries where we joke about, but it's very easy to take those angles as your main part of the copy, right? Perhaps like, hey, if you're promoting, let's say, casino or crypto in the Netherlands, hey, do you need money because you're cheap? They're not actually cheap. That's not the problem. They just don't like spending that money. That's something else, right? So you would better give them, for example, interest on the amount of money you have in the bank. Like a finance offer would make a lot more sense for this audience, because it's not about spending the money. They can spend it if they want to on, like, they have all kinds of luxury cars here, but it's that initial step. All right. How is the divide in terms of regions in France? Is there any inner conflict there or not?
You have, like, well, we can say that you have bourgeois family, like a family with money, or like the higher class of French people who are Catholic.
Oh, okay.
So for example, if you put a kid in a private school, the private school is Catholic. So if you're not, you have no choice.
Okay, what is the lower class example then?
And the lower class, I would say it's like athée, no religion, atheist.
It's like community college, yeah.
Yeah, it's more and more. If you want, if someone is Catholic, most of the time is like higher class. Like it's very rare that is in a lower class.
Right. And this is basically a pattern from, not from just this generation, probably the previous generation.
Yeah.
And when I say this generation, I'm referring to myself. So I mean, your generation, Chris, you would be like the last people who have religion as the first marker in their life, right?
Yeah, that's true. I'm just in the middle. Like in my family, my older brother and sisters have Catholic. They learn Catholic things. Sorry for the, but not me, because like I'm 10 years after them, so now it's and I'm younger, so it's really like above 50 and above, and below 50.
It's the hardcore. Yes. So this is obviously for everybody a big pattern. Religion all over the world influences people's behavior, right? Not necessarily always purchase behavior, but there are some restrictions to a religion which allows you to choose what you can and cannot do based on what the Holy Book says of that specific religion, right? Russia, Orthodox Christians, right? Very hardcore. When we go to, let's say, Morocco, you have Jews there, you have Muslims there, right? You have Christians there. So when people say like, oh, it's Muslims in Morocco, there are many, right? But in the southern part, if I'm correct, there's also a lot of Jews, right? Which people might not estimate. Over here, Israel, a lot of Jews, but in the Jerusalem part, if you follow the news at all, there's a lot of Muslims there, right? So in that regard, the pattern of, oh, Damien, yeah, go ahead. I can't hear you.
I was just going to say that, I was going to wait till you finish that, but with religion, in the UK, we've got left and right now. So you've got your snowflake generation on the left, and you've got your...
easy. Let's not make any conclusions based on what is right or wrong, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but that's becoming quite prominent as religion is as well. You know, that's I think more the younger generation now are not so religious based, but they're more left or right. You know, they're more either they love everything and they love everyone, and anyone that disagrees with them is wrong. And then you've got the right, which are, you know, the opposite to that. Do you see what I'm getting out of there?
Yeah, I would say that's very clear indication of what's happening in the Western world. And when we say Western world, we're referring to tier one, basically, Western Europe, Australia, less than, for example, US or Canada. What's important, however, is don't forget the other 90% of the world, right? Where, for example, in Indonesia, as the largest Muslim country in the world, where it's very normal to follow those patterns, where we say, oh, well, I don't have a religion. It's very uncommon in these countries to not go with either of these sides. And that is something which you have to do in advertising, is you just made a little hiccup where we don't assume that something is better or worse based on your political beliefs, yes? In business, we always say there's two things we never talk about, religion and politics, because you cannot win. You will always lose. Right? Because nobody wants to agree on something that either they don't have faith in, which is great. We respect everything. And at the end of the day, I don't care about the politics or religion that you follow. I care about business needs to make money, right? And if we can not exploit, but benefit from that, you will just notice that people who run a personal religion in their business, right? They have a different ethical boundary, usually. Right? But that is like a real consequence. And when you refer to snowflakes left wing, that is your opinion, where they would say fascists on the right, right? It's the usual, the argument. At the end of the day, you need to be able to sell to both audiences. You need to understand both audience and be able to relate to them. Yeah. Right?
Just
because
to be clear, I sit in the middle. Just
okay.
Just to be clear before anyone else on the call. Yeah.
Somebody kicks you off your bike. Yeah. Okay. So at the end of the day, because as soon as you understand this little list, right? So Chris gave a really good example of France, and you can do this for any country, which I assume most of you guys don't when you prep a campaign, which is, this is like not A part campaign creation, is B part. This is more of a long-term thing which you develop over time, where you can see the characteristics of an audience. Right, and it's even more difficult when you zoom in to specific group segments of a country. Yes, Tav.
Do you use this in offer selection, or
no?
When you would do something like this, you wouldn't. This doesn't make any difference when you're selecting an offer, but rather when you pick an offer and then you looking into the country and then you start segmenting what kind of audience you'd have.
Yeah, this is basically, it's not an option. So let's say you know the characteristic of a Muslim audience, I assume, right? You might not know the Jewish audience that well, but it's not an excuse not to use that, right? So you need to be able to do this sum up like we just did for any audience, because this is not what you think it is. It's public information. Yes, it's statistics.
So it's like a guideline basically of
if you would go like
GDP
per capita, and then you type in, for example, UK, right? There's usually a whole lot. Well, here we go. We already got a graph, but we want like World Bank. That would be a good source. The Statista is my favorite source. So let's go back, and I see Statista here. And I've been using this for a crazy amount of years. So what I wanted to say, Tav, is that this is not something to bite into. It's not going to make or break your campaign. But when I say some media buyers spend 10 hours a day, this is something that they take into consideration, not necessarily to make a campaign profitable, but just to understand how things could work, right? So we can see the GDP is rising. Why is this dip? Well, this is 2008. So everybody should know why the dip is occurring here. Why is that?
We had the thingy then, didn't we? The recession.
Yeah, the thingy.
The recession.
Yeah, it's the banking crisis, right?
We had a recession
that crashed. So if you don't know this, obviously this is coronavirus, right? The dip right here in growth. These are small indicators, so you know why these are happening. But there's obviously paid stuff. We don't necessarily need to look at paid stuff, but you can also look at, for example, labor market, number of people unemployed. And there are specific categories like inflation or tax and stuff, where when we talked about the US, there are interesting things happen under the Biden administration. No matter if you think they're good or bad, it doesn't really matter. But I just heard today that they're going to do something with the tax, right? I forgot what it exactly was, but there's some major tax changes coming through, which is obviously heavily impacting the people. But in your situation, I forgot the question. Sorry, what was the question again?
No, it's just my understanding is whether you should base this on selecting an offer, or once you select the offer, if you, in general. But I guess it helps to making creative angles and to know in the country. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So in general, you wouldn't spend hours on this, right? As soon as you get more familiar with the advertising and the options available, that let's say anybody would give me a specific country, I can sketch the behavior patterns in my own words in 1 minute, right? Because let's say Nigeria, the first thing you say, opportunistic, right? They want opportunity. Egypt, very stuck in their own culture. Like, so there's for every country something to say, which you need to take into consideration. Are they conservative? Are they opportunistic? Like these elements. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Perfect. Anybody else? We'll just finish it. We have 8 minutes left, so we'll just finish it with a big Q&A. So if you have anything to ask on this, we'll not do another example. Yeah, Joe.
Hey, Colin, just real quickly. We talked about Google Translate, let's say, with France. So as an example, I dated an Armenian girl, and she spoke 8 languages. She spoke clean French. She moved to Montreal, Quebecer French, totally different. They actually looked down on her for speaking, Parisian French. So I would imagine it also depends on the country, the specific type of language that you are speaking into.
Well, I can show you. So I always use 1 hour translation, which I think we recommend everywhere. It's not a referral or anything. It's just something that we use. I think I have my own account here. Well, I don't, but there's one thing which is called add in specific slang for that country, right?
Okay.
There's an option there, and then the writer will just blend in the text, which makes a lot of sense. Let's say, let me just go to translate, because I think we have quite some people. By the way, can you read Dutch or not? No, okay. Well, if we would say it in Dutch, is this house is, well, we will do it in a neutral one. So we'll say this supplement is the most amazing supplement on the market. You should get it now. The Dutch words, they resemble different meaning. They're descriptive words, not exact words. So this says, this supplement is the most, it says amazing, but it says like, amazing, like this. There's emotion involved with it, which amazing doesn't say. Supplement on the market that you should get, but should in a way where it's submissive, right? It's an instruction. You need to get it on a form of authority. So this last part is fucked up, because nobody would say this. This is like a delivery of a package. You should be receiving the package, and you should not get it now, right? Make sense? All the Dutch people agree? Yes, I think only, oh, Sean, you can read Dutch as well. Damn, we got some skilled people here. But this is basically a perfect example of why it doesn't make sense, because now it says you should get the supplement. It's saying like you should receive it soon, right? Which makes no sense. And I think you have this for every example. If you would send this to me, I know what you mean, right? But if a company would tell me this, I'm not even confused. I just lose all the trust. For example, there's like a lot of countries where you can say, for a Dutch customer service, you would say, they can say like, hey bro, how's it going, right? Which in a lot of other countries, if you don't say, hey sir, then it's offensive.
Right.
And we're very, direct in that way.
Well, and obviously I'm in Texas, so it's completely different to speak down here versus up in New York, New Amsterdam.
Well, yeah. New Amsterdam, claim it. Yeah, that would be the same thing. You would have the most with the swamp people, right? I don't know exactly where they live, like Missouri or something, but the way they talk and the way they behave compared to like LA, New York, it's like a world of difference, right? In terms of how they look, what they do, those kind of things, like the people who wrestle with alligators.
Yeah, Louisiana.
Louisiana. All right, well, there we go. Yeah, all good. Tef, you had another question? I did see a little raise of a hand. Go for it.
I know it's a schoolboy question, but so if I was to go and start making, I'll find an offer. I want to create landers. So should I go and start creating the landers on translator, 1 hour translator, get it all changed, then test the offer. But what if the offer doesn't work then? Is that how the process is, or?
Yeah, so in that scenario, you know, I think I mentioned this to Damien just last week. I don't like spy tools. I don't like anything about the spy tool. I think it's a useless tool in general. But in this scenario, you might want to leverage the spy tool just to rip a translated lender, right? Which you should throw the text through Google Translate, because then you can see if the grammar makes enough sense, right? But if you would get the traction on the ads, then you can do the lender later. Obviously, a quiz lender is like only $16 to translate, and advertorial is $250. So it's kind of a different story, right? In that scenario, there obviously as soon as you have, let's say, an advertorial, like for the crypto, for example, the crypto advertisers has all the languages available, a dozen or two advertorials. You just need to ask, and they will send them to you. Right.
So you throw one into the market, see if there's any traction on the offer. If there is, you start testing different. Okay, great, got it.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. And usually, the lender, as per usual, is not going to make or break the campaign. You can improve the campaign based on it, squeeze more ROI, 5-10%, right? But it's not going to give you an additional 50%. Make sense? So it starts really at the front end.
What gives you the additional 50%?
The CTR increase, which means you get more traffic and the conversion rate is the same.
Okay, good. All right.
So you get more traffic in the flow. Yeah.
Okay.
Follow up or good?
And the placements, what you didn't speak about the placements. In my scenario, because I'm doing push, I don't know if this works for native. Where does the placements come into it? You said the CTR increase makes or breaks the campaign, but what about placements?
I don't know, because this is about the lender, so it has nothing to do with the placements.
Oh, okay. I see. I got you what you mean. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah, makes sense. All right, gotcha.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Damien.
Just one with that 1 hour translation, something I found doing. Obviously, MGID, you've only got 65 characters. So when you write it in English, you may have 65 characters. Translate it into another language, you end up with more characters. Yep. So what I do with 1 hour translation is when I send it through, I put a note on it to say, you know, I'll give them an idea of what I'm promoting, and I'll say, if this comes above 65 characters, can you please adjust it so it makes sense and is relevant to what I'm talking about. And that just saves you going backwards and forwards and messing around with, you know, trying to translate and cut bits out that you don't know whether it makes sense or not. At least then you've got a native speaker that will say, yeah.
I think there's even an option where you can say, feel free to do business, but freehand translation. So you can change the format of the sentence, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good recommendation, definitely. Thank you. Murat.
Yes. How much do you take the audience behavior pattern in consideration with push? Because in my case, to be honest, besides offer selection, for example, like the Hankemuller offer doesn't make sense with push. But besides that, I'm not taking this in consideration for.
So it would obviously be more difficult the less targeting options you have, but it would be important to take into consideration how people behave. You try Germany, right? Where you see there is relative interest if they can get a free iPhone, which you know. Why don't they convert? Because they're skeptical, right? The audience just has a way lower conversion rate, but they do have the interest, right? Which you a lot see with the Dutch people as well, right? Oh, free car, might want to have a look, or free e-bike. And I can tell you a story, right? Which is quite cool. So obviously by now, almost 4 years ago, in the call center, I used to run ads while I was working there, right? Sweepstake leads. I got those leads converted and I would have to call them myself, the exact leads I was sending, right? Because basically inventory sales. So what happens is I could immediately identify a strong mismatch, because basically I was selling UF1 in e-bike, right? Instant winner. That's the flow I was doing. So these people get a call, you need to sell them like electricity and gas, you know, Oxio, that kind of bullshit. And they wonder that they want the bike, right? Because you said instant winner. So on the audience could only be converted when you made them the promise, which is classic Dutch people, right? They always say, do you promise? I'm going to do that. You promise or not? If you say you're going to do it, then do it, right? Don't say like, yeah, bro, I'm going to do that for you. Trust me. That's what the Americans say. And you cannot trust them because they're not going to do it, right? And that's like the hook. So every audience has just a pattern. You can identify the pattern of Dutch people because you're here. You can identify relative religion because you are a part of it. But you also need to put in a lot of effort to understand other people, right? Okay. And in that regard, all of a sudden, it makes a lot of sense for sweepstakes because now you understand why the data might be working in such a way, and then you read the data and it either confirms your bias or not.
Yes.
Make sense? But it's obviously, like I said, your media buying is here, and what we're discussing right now is here. It's important, but it's not your primary focus.
Not right now, for sure.
Well, it should be. So don't get me wrong. Yes, you should spend some time on it, but it's not in your campaign creation process per se fixed. You're not going to do it for every offer, but you should do it continuously. By reading the data, you should be able to learn how audience work and over the years how they develop.
Yes.
Because things change all the time, especially things like political changes, like Chris mentioned. When something goes from left-wing country to right-wing, you will see major changes. Or, for example, Poland, why is the government not changing? Is also very important because that might go to oppression or other kind of things. Make sense? Okay.
Yeah, makes sense. Interesting. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions for now? Those 1.5 hour sessions go by so quick because we're having such a great time together. That's how it goes. All right. Thanks, guys. That was everything for today. I'll be back on Thursday with also a very cool one. I cannot even recall. Stanley, what are we going to do on Thursday?
On Thursday, we are going to do, let me have a quick check.
Live
ad creation masterclass.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
That's interesting. So if you show up, you might get some free ads made by yours truly with all of you guys' help, right? So we'll do a couple of different traffic sources, a couple of different ads, and there will be a full live build with Q&A involved as per usual. Thank you guys for being here once more, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. Have a good day. Bye-bye.